I am ready to rumble. Yeah, for everybody that's on already, awesome. Awesome that you guys are here so early. Um, I have no idea how many people are going to show up for this, so glad you guys came early and got a spot. Um, Ian should be on soon. He is out in California right now, so probably just waking up. At some point in the call, we are going to take questions. So we're going to do, I think, like a regular round of questions, and then we're going to probably do like a rapid fire round, almost kind of like the ESPN show PTI. Me and Ian will just battle back and forth. So if you have any questions, start thinking of those, and at a certain point, I'll have you guys start putting them in the chat. For everybody that's getting on now, so we're probably going to start in about 10 minutes. Might be a little late. Still waiting on Ian. So, kind of the format, we are planning on basically doing, me and Ian are both going to share our stories, go through some of the content that we have prepared that I want to talk about, that I want to get Ian's opinion on too. And then we're going to do a couple rounds of questions. So, we'll do some longer rounds of questions, and then we're going to kind of do a couple like rapid fire ones as well. So, any questions you have about copy, funnels, if you're actually a copywriter and you want to talk about kind of like gigs and how we structure deals, stuff like that, getting clients, all kinds of stuff like that. If you're a business owner or a marketer, if you want to talk more about marketing stuff and funnels and offers and all that kind of stuff, we can do that too. So whatever you want to toss at us, we'll chat about. Probably my gut says it's going to go like probably about 90 minutes. I am recording it, so if you wind up missing any of it. There will be a recording of it that I'm going to put on YouTube. But the last few times I have recorded on Zoom, the audio did not turn out very well. So no promises, I guess. And if anybody has a suggestion for making sure the audio turns out well when you have two people talking, for some reason, one person's always turns out loud and one person's really quiet. So I'm like the least tech savvy person ever. So awesome. We got like 43 people already. This is sweet. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if like 5 people were going to show up or 100 people or what. So this is awesome. If everybody's on the call wants to kind of check in the chat and just kind of say how you heard about this. So I know a lot of you are on my email list. Some of the people are on Ian's email list. Some of the people have read about this on Facebook. So yeah, just kind of checking out. I'd be curious to kind of hear where everybody's from. Awesome. So email list. Ian, is that you? Oh, okay. Awesome. So there's a lot of people on this call. There's everything from newbie copywriters to pretty damn successful copywriters, business owners, funnel people. So this is going to be a really good mix. Most of the content we are going to talk about is going to be pretty intermediate to advanced. So if you are brand new, some of the stuff may be flying over your head. But like I said, the intention of this call is to be a more intermediate, advanced type call. So I'm sure there's some stuff we'll do that's more catered to new people, and even a lot of the basics that work for newbies is obviously super applicable to even people who are advanced. Wait and see if Ian is on. Awesome. So we got 61 people now. Sweet. So we're gonna get started in about 5 minutes or so. Just waiting for Ian to hop on right now. Can everybody hear everything all right? Someone typed in the chat that they can't hear anything. You should be able to hear everything. Okay. Yeah, so everybody is on mute. And we'll keep it that way unless you are answering a question. Oh, there you are.
Hey,
Ian,
Justin, what's going on?
Hey guys. Ian, any idea how I can make you a co-presenter?
I don't think it actually really makes a difference since everybody can participate.
Okay.
I can still share my screen in different, like if there's anything that needs to be done. I don't think it really matters.
So for everybody listening besides Ian, can everyone please mute themselves?
So you have a mute all button.
Where's that?
I don't know exactly, but you can mute everyone. Okay. You have like a God button.
That's a really good term for that.
It feels great too.
Let me find it. Oh, there you go. Mute all. Okay. So yeah, just one more reminder. I muted everybody, but if you're not muted, please mute yourself. Otherwise, the background noise and the static will really ruin the call pretty quickly. Ian, you can unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm here.
Cool. Okay, you just woke up.
That would probably be because I did.
The biggest bout of your life and you're sleeping in.
That's because I don't need to prepare for something like this.
All right, cool. So we're going to get started in like a couple minutes. We'll let everybody's still filtering in. Awesome, man. We got like 80 people. This is sweet.
Ooh, Ronald Lynch.
Yeah, there's some big guns on here. I saw Ron. I saw Paris Lampropoulos. I saw Buck Risby. I saw
Blake and Tanner up in this.
Paul Norwine.
Is Paul here? Paul's a legend.
I saw Paul. Yeah, some big names. Cool.
Aaron Brabham. Man, the myth, the legend.
The Colombian gangster.
Yeah. I just spent 3 days with him. See him again tomorrow.
So guys, just to give another quick rundown, which I gave a little earlier, kind of the idea behind the call is me and Ian are gonna share kind of our stories, then we're gonna go through a bunch of content in terms of funnels, copy, making a bunch of sales, stuff like that. And then we're going to hop into some rounds of questions. And then, so we'll do a couple of rounds of like longer questions. And then I'd like to do like a kind of like a rapid fire round of questions. So if you have any questions, kind of hold on to them and we'll take them in the chat at some point. And yeah, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Like I said, this is going to be pretty informal. The idea is a pretty just kind of like informal chat like we would have at a bar. This is not like a pre-made webinar or anything like that. So a lot more casual, a lot more relaxed. And I mentioned in my email, I had this $100 bill on my desk and I was like, all right, I should do something cool with it. So whoever has the question that leads to the best discussion between me and Ian, I'm gonna send you $100. So think of a good question.
We got a bunch of legends on this call. This is a good group. Do you want me to think of the question? What if I ask it?
You can ask questions. Do you need $100?
I do. I'm in dire need right now, man. That's some life-changing cash.
We could Venmo you money if you really need it. All right, we'll start at 11:05.
Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great.
There's still people trickling in.
Does anybody have any non-marketing related questions in the meantime to ramp up the fun level of this? I like to tell embarrassing stories to start things like this, but I don't know if I'm going to do that right now.
Ian, what kind of product do you use in your hair?
I don't. It's called sleep, and having incredible. Sorry, not to shame you. Just I have really incredible genetics with my hair, so that it's very thick, and it just stands up naturally. Yeah, Ryan asks, Justin, what kind of product do you use in your hair?
That's a secret.
Sunscreen?
Yeah. Yes, in Texas, yes.
Yeah, it's incredible. What are your thoughts on crypto and digital? I got nothing for that. S&P 500.
Oh, way over my head.
Ron said, have you been using Roland's Upgrade Your Hotel program? What do you think, Ron? I'm staying in the Crown Plaza where I got my foot sliced open 6 weeks ago. And I literally found a piece of glass on the floor yesterday. So I think I need to get his program.
Nice.
It's just there's only like 3 hotels in Redondo Beach. So.
All right. Well, let's get rolling. Let's
just do this.
100 people on, which is awesome.
Wait, we got one really important question before we start.
Yeah.
Steve said, what call to action button is better, green or red? That's a very good question. Those are the big levers that swing conversions.
Yeah, hold that, Steve, because we'll get to it at the end. All right. So kind of the point, like I said, the point of this call is a very informal conversation between me and Ian. A lot of people here are from my email list. A lot of people from Ian's email list who probably don't know the other one of us. So why don't you kick it off and just kind of like share your story so people who don't know you.
I have a lot of different stories, but I would say the simplest, quickest version is, let's see, when I was 19, I started clicking on a bunch of ads on the internet, and I found out about ClickBank and affiliate marketing, and I thought that the commission percentage where it said 50% on ClickBank meant that 50% of the people who went to that page would buy the product. And I remember telling my mom, she was like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing this affiliate marketing thing. Basically, you buy an ad, and then like half of the people who click. It didn't work like that. And so I've tried all sorts of different stuff and bought a bunch of ClickBank products, and I ended up basically buying and returning a bunch of products. And then I wrote a book on how to pick up women when I was like 20. It was basically just a lifting program. And then I, after that, didn't sell too much of it. And then I think it was like the year after college ended, I basically decided I was going to get good at one thing instead of everything. And so I just chose copy, and I hand copied sales letters every day for an hour. And that was sort of when I consider my real education started. And then I got a job working with Mike Colella, actually, who's one of the best media buyers we had like a 1.2 million person email list. So I sent a ton of emails and I wrote all the copy and VSLs and everything. And then I worked at Crisis Education, where we had some big offers, as well as Perfect Water Purifier and Fit Prosperity. And then, I had sorry, somebody just asked if I'm in Australia. I thought they said, "Are you Australian?" I'm half English and half American, which means everyone thinks I'm Australian, by the way. And I'm sorry if my internet's not great. I mean, it should be pretty decent, but hopefully it's not buffering too much. But yeah, so after all that, I went out on my own and started freelancing, and then I started a few businesses of my own. I sold an e-commerce business last year, and now I have I teach marketing and copy, and then I also have a business with my business partner, Brent Charlton, who's an executive coach and therapist. And we help people uncover and resolve sort of the hidden blocks that are holding them back, which I think there's actually a good amount of people on the call who've been to the Lionheart workshops, including Mr. Justin Goff himself. So that's sort of my primary focus these days. Yeah, Ryan McGrath just said Lionheart's awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, so that's sort of the bare bones version. I'm also sometimes a comedian. People think I'm funny sometimes. And I do characters like Lai Topez and Kent Gardone and Barry Grinderchuk and make fun of people, basically. I kind of get paid to make fun of people, which is pretty cool. So that's probably the best description.
Cool.
What about you, Justin? What's your story?
Yeah, so mine, how I got into internet marketing is actually pretty funny. So I used to be a really big poker player and sports bettor when I was in college. I actually paid my way through about half of college by doing that. And then every young 22-year-old who's good at something, I got very cocky. And one weekend bet a whole lot of money that I did not have. And basically had a shitty weekend and lost every game. So I owed a bookie a lot of money that I did not own. And basically had to figure out a way to make it very, very quickly. So I had this bright idea that I would sell my sports picks online. I was like, I'm really good at this. Why don't I just put up a website and sell my picks online? And literally I had the ugliest website ever. It was one of those create a drag and drop websites. It was just so bad. Did not make any sales. Nobody. I was literally spamming forums trying to make sales. Nothing was working. And then one time, I think I was still in college at the time, and I was home over Christmas break. I was at my parents' house, and I got this notification on my PayPal account that I made a $149 sale. And I just remember sitting in the chair. I was in my parents' computer room, and I just literally screamed like a 12-year-old girl, jumping up and down, running around the room. I was just shocked. And that was kind of the first taste that this is real and that, okay, there's actually something here. Cause up until that point, when you haven't made a sale, haven't done anything, none of it seems real. It just seems basically a pipe dream. But that happened. I made a sale, and that kind of got me started. I got into doing affiliate stuff for poker sites and sports betting sites. And this was really when the poker boom was really going on. So it was a great time to be in that niche. I got out of that niche around 2008 or so and started doing fitness stuff. Kind of got into info products. And I remember seeing my first long copy sales page then. And just being baffled that anyone in their right mind would ever buy something from these. I was just this is the ugliest thing ever. It looks like the biggest scam. It looks so shitty. What the hell? I couldn't believe it. But then as I kind of got into it more and more, I started to realize, there's a reason they do it this way. It actually works. And I started writing copy, started getting pretty decent at it. And my first offer that I actually released was in 2010 on ClickBank. It was called the 31-Day Fat Loss Cure. It was an info product. It was kind of like paleo and CrossFit type stuff before all of that really took off. And it wound up being a pretty big hit on ClickBank. After getting it up and then doing some testing, I got it to the point where I made $100,000 in the first 2.5, 3 months with it, profit. And that was really just kind of the big, I don't know, kind of the big boost of confidence that I needed at the time to make me realize, all right, I can actually do this. So yeah, and a lot like Ian, I did a lot of freelance copywriting. I had that offer that did really well for like a year. I wound up starting a supplement company after that, which I ran from like 2014 until 2017. I sold that last year to my partner. And so me and my partner built that along with the rest of our team from scratch to like, I think we got to like $23 million in sales in about 2.5 years. And that's probably been my biggest success so far. I took a year off after I sold that, and I'm kind of getting back into things now, doing some consulting, writing copy, working with a lot of the biggest companies in the direct response arena to kind of boost their funnels and get their offers working. So kind of similar to what Ian does. Yeah, we kind of just wanted to chat about what we do and share a lot of good stuff. If you guys have questions, let's start posting them now, and maybe we can kind of work off some of the questions.
So you want to start with some of the questions?
I'm good with that, unless you got like
No, I mean, people are already asking, so I figure we may as well just give the people what they want.
Yeah.
One of the
Actually, I think the one that just came in with the "what's your process for crafting an offer" is actually a really interesting question.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Why don't you go ahead?
So one of the most interesting things, I think the biggest thing people do wrong when making offers is they think, here's what we want to add to our, like, we have these 3 supplements already, let's add this one, that'd be a good fit. And the real way to kind of make an offer is, what do the customers need, and then go and create it. So that's like baseline. You got to start there. It's not what you want, it's what people are actually already buying and what people actually want, and then go make that. And kind of really when I'm starting from like scratch when it comes to an offer, the biggest thing is, where can I put together an offer that's going to be loaded with a lot of proof? Gary Bencivenga had a quote once where he was talking about putting together offers, and he was like, I don't go looking for a product, I go looking for proof elements. And the reality is, that's because if you put together an offer that already has a ton of proof built into it, selling that is 100 times easier than taking something from scratch and trying to find a hook for it and trying to find proof and trying to find credibility elements and all that kind of stuff. So kind of starting from the place of, all right, what has the most proof? What has the best story? So like if you're putting together a supplement, I care a lot less about the ingredients than I do about the story around it. I remember like when we launched Patriot Power Greens a couple of years ago, the story we used was that this was an elite supplement that was previously only used by elite military units, because we sent it out to a bunch of military units to test drive. And so like regular people couldn't buy it. And then now it was being released to the public for the first time. So that's a really unique hook. And a lot of credibility and a lot of proof, the fact that like people in the military were using it and getting all these crazy results with it. So from my standpoint, when it comes to making a product, I tend to start there. And you kind of almost have to just work backwards. So Greg Renker, who runs Guthrie Renker, he had a really interesting thing at the Titans conference a couple of years ago, where he was talking about Guthrie Renker used to do the Tony Robbins infomercials and stuff, and then they started doing like supplements and face creams and stuff like that, and they realized they really had the process down for how to do like consumable stuff. So like I said, like face creams. So they're the people behind Proactive, and they have that really like just down to a science now. They're very, very good at, here's how the offer should go on TV. Here's the price point. Here's how we do the recurring billing, all that kind of stuff. And that's a really smart way to do it, because once you know how something works, you can kind of just plug in, all right, here's a product with Jillian Michaels as the front end. Here's a product with this woman as the front end, or this guy, or whatever. That's a smarter way to create products than just kind of saying, okay, we have a joint supplement, we have this supplement, let's add this supplement. That's my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, when that question, I suppose we're talking about like coming up with an actual offer, like whether it's a new product or something like that. I have sort of two things. The first thing, what we did, what you just said at the end made me think of this, is when I was at Crisis Education. So we had a big offer called the 4-Foot Farm, and it was basically how to grow 100 pounds of veggies in a 4-foot space. And so the sales letter was basically a lead with some story and then bullets and a close. And it was a $7 offer, and that offer did like, I think like 9 million in a year, basically built that business. And what we did is we started basically just replicating that format and basically try and find trends or issues that we think people wanted solved. And the process for creating copy was really easy. Basically, I just had to write a lead and 12 bullets. So what I would do is we would basically go and get some sort of average ebook made to start for our first version. And then I would sit down with whatever that was, and I would basically in 2 days, typically 1 to 2 days, I could write the full offer. And then we'd test it and just see how it did, instead of trying to, put all this crazy effort and stuff into it, just see what the market wanted. But what we found was actually that getting the front end to convert wasn't the most important piece, because we had certain offers that would do well on the front end, and they had the numbers to, like, they had the same conversion rates as, say, the 4-Foot Farm, but the offer wasn't congruent enough for the upsells that we had available to make the AOV high enough to scale traffic. Electricity, like 101 ways to like slash your electricity bill, and we just didn't have the right upsells to actually turn that into a high enough AOV to scale the traffic. So it really came down to how congruent we could make the upsells for the front end. But now what I like to do is I like to use basically, it's just called reply emails, and I just ask my list different questions, and I found that the question you ask is the most important thing. But I sent one out a couple weeks ago, and I just said templates ? And asked people if they would want an email of the month program where I give them templates every week. And I got more responses than I've ever gotten from a single email, and everybody just said yes, 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 yes. And so for me, that's what I like to do, is not guess if they're going to want the product, and just ask them if they're interested, and then create what it is that my customers say they're struggling with. So asking them a big product I have an idea for, or like if I was in the supplement space, which I used to be, it'd be like, hey, here are 3 things that we're thinking about creating. Which one would be the most beneficial to you? Like a supplement around joints, a supplement around, hair and skin, or whatever it is. And then literally just let the email list vote on what they think would work, what they want most. That's kind of how I've been going with it now.
Nice. One thing you mentioned that when you talked about upsells that I really look at is people will come up with a product, but they'll be like, okay, I want to sell this product and I know this will probably work, but you need to think longer than just the front end product. So if there's a good like sequence of upsells that would go along with that product naturally, that's the best fit. So like for an example, my old company, our sister company, the Four Patriots brand, which is like survival food, one of their offers is a free plus shipping offer of like a mini 3-day worth of survival food. And then the natural upsell to that is like a bigger package of survival food. Most people actually, when they craft an offer, don't actually like think about that. But if you can come up with a front end offer that has a really natural back end that fits with it perfectly, like just boom, it's like a puzzle piece. Like, oh, this is very natural, like upsell. Your upsell rate is going to go through the roof. And your AOV is going to go through the roof. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't think about when they're creating their front end product.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's literally the difference between having a losing offer and having a business is that side of things. Like with the last upsell was this $500 like pre-built like cylindrical thing that you could basically use to do everything that was in the ebook. And you had people like 1 to 2% of people who just bought a $7 ebook were buying that $500 item on the front end. And that one product was, was basically what had allowed the traffic to scale because there was a lot of profit in it. And if you didn't have that side of things, like that's what we didn't have with like the electricity thing, was like a higher ticket, sort of whatever some people slack adjuster, whatever you want to call it, to basically get the average order value. Yeah, and AOV means average order value for those who didn't know. Thank you, Steve. Steve wrote that in there. So it was not a Faraday cage, Paris. I don't know that I know what a Faraday cage is, but it was not that.
Sounds like something you'd order at a sex shop.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple of cages like that at my house. But yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing that people don't think about is what is like with water. I sold a bunch of water filters and water pitchers, and the best upsell is filters because it's something that the product can't continue to work without them. So you really got to think about the back end when you're starting with the front end. Because we would also do stuff like sort of topical stuff, like when Ebola was a big thing, I wrote an Ebola sales letter, which is pretty fun actually. But like we kind of knew that that's more of a cash grab. Like I don't know how much we thought about selling a pet hazmat suit. I thought that would do really well, but it didn't end up. Basically, Ebola got fixed too quickly, unfortunately. Not unfortunately. Fortunately for the world, unfortunately for our bank account.
That's funny. Cool. That was. Let's hop to some other questions.
I actually thought that somebody just asked, how long did it take you to get good at copy? I think that's a good, simple question.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, so, man, I think the first time I ever wrote copy, I didn't know I was writing copy. I didn't know what it was called. I wrote a pre-sell for a dating offer, and I literally just told a story. That was the extent of what I did, and it was working well. So I think there was mainly luck in that. I feel like it took me 30 to 60 days to feel pretty comfortable with copy, and that was of hand copying a sales letter every single day. It's hard to remember, but what I do remember is that there's a distinct moment as a copywriter where things change, which was, this might have been 6 months in, maybe longer, and it depends on how much you're getting to write and how much you're testing stuff. Like the biggest difference in my career from what I've found most people have gone through is that they don't like a lot of freelancers and stuff don't get the data back on what they wrote. They just give a client something and then it's like, hey, good luck. My only way that I do stuff has backend built in, so I have to find out how it did. And when I was at Crisis Education in the credit program, we tested everything and I literally got all the data. So I found out what worked and what didn't. Whereas most people have no idea. It's like, I compare it to like, it'd be like playing tennis and you can't see the other side of the court. You're just hitting the ball and you're like, oh, that one felt good. Maybe that's how you're supposed to hit the ball. And that's what most people are doing with copy. Like, oh, that one looked good. It felt good, or I liked it. And they have no idea if it actually worked or not. But the big moment that I had, like the switch, was when you go from writing something and you feel like, is this going to convert at all? Like, is anyone going to buy anything? And then you have that moment where you switch to, how many of this thing are people going to buy? That's sort of the big moment when you realize, oh, I do know what I'm doing here. Like, this is a thing that I can do. That was my sort of transformation moment.
Yeah. I kind of classify copywriters into, at least the ones I work with, there's pretty much two categories. There's what you call a B-level writer who can write write good copy. It sounds very almost generic, because like their blood pressure promotion sounds just like another blood pressure promotion. And then you have like the A-list writers who usually the A-list writers are the only ones who can usually make an offer work on cold traffic. I mean, there's a ton that goes into making an offer work on cold traffic beyond just the copy. But if you have C and B level copy, it's not going to work on cold traffic. And so one caveat to that is that it can work on Facebook traffic, because Facebook traffic is so highly targeted that you can make average copy work on there. Like there's a lot of free plus shipping offers with not great copy running on Facebook that work. And if you took those offers to like native traffic, or if you took them to email lists, they'd get slaughtered. So kind of making that stuff work on, let's say, Facebook or something. But to kind of get back to the question about copy, this is kind of interesting because I've seen this with the two copy cubs. I have two copy cubs right now, Tanner and Alec, who I've been training to do email copy specifically. So they're not learning anything about long form copy or that, but literally just emails, because my thought was I could teach them how to write really good emails very quickly. And they did. I mean, it was a couple months and they were pretty damn good at it already. So my thought is really an email is literally just a smaller sales page. A lot of the same elements all go in there: proof, scarcity, good opening, good story, all that kind of stuff. But getting really good at email copy to people who are starting out would be my number one suggestion, because you can get pretty good in like 2 months and you can start taking clients very quickly. Whereas learning how to write a long form sales letter and becoming really good at that is a multi-year process.
Yeah. And I started out basically writing a ton of email copy, and then I made a course literally on like, if somebody erased my brain and I had like a month to get good at email copy, what would I do? And I think it's a realistic thing to get good at email copy in a month. And the reason that I like it is the same as Goff is you can literally take your emails and turn them into a sales letter as well. Like if you write an autoresponder sequence, you can actually take those emails, and sometimes it's just, and then you put some transition sentences together and stuff, and you actually have a sales letter. Doesn't mean it's going to be, perfect right off the bat or anything, but you can definitely turn your email copy into a long form sales letter or VSL or whatever.
Cool, man. Let's see. I'm going to scroll through some of these questions.
I just want to answer this one because this is funny to me. There are now 6 or more software. I'm sorry to do a douchey voice for you, David Ryan. But there are now 6 or more software programs you can buy from $495 to $3,000 that write copy for you, like the one from ClickFunnels. What are your thoughts on those? And do you think copy robots will take over? I'm going to give you my gut reaction, which is that's fucking stupid. There's zero chance.
It's a great offer.
It's a great offer because, hey, look, our copy robots will write it for you. And, and first off, look, I don't know how those programs work. I'm personally not worried in any way. My beliefs, somebody asked me the other day if I was worried about robots taking over in general. And I was like, no, like it's not a fear I carry around in my daily life. But especially with creativity and stuff, like, I think creativity is so random, as far as the different exposure that you have in your life to different books, to different stories, to different things that have happened to you. You cannot recreate coming up with big ideas, in my opinion, which is just me. But, I'm sure there's stuff to get like average, 50 to 60% sort of decent copy out there into the world, which is better than getting nothing out. But I definitely don't think the copy robots will take over.
I agree.
I think we should sort of switch between copy questions.
You cut out.
Business owner questions so that it stays relevant for people. I think we should switch between copy questions and like funnel business owner questions to keep it sort of relevant
Cool.
for everybody on the call.
Carlos asks, how do I get better at coming up with big ideas? So for those not familiar, the big idea is literally like the crux of a VSL or a sales page. And to make an offer work on cold traffic, especially email traffic or native or anything like that, where you could really, really scale it, you need a good big idea. The most helpful thing for me was there's an article that Mark Ford wrote. Mark Ford, who used to run Agora, also goes by the name Michael Masterson. If you search Mark Ford big idea or Michael Masterson big idea, you'll find it online. Really, the big idea is all about like my favorite one. So one of my favorite ones ever is one from Agora, where there was basically like this investment product they were selling. It's, I don't know, seems like a normal investment product. There was nothing that special about it. Whoever wrote the copy for it realized that it kind of mimicked the Canadian Social Security plan. And the big idea behind it turned out to be like being sold to Americans. It was like, here's how you can piggyback on Canadian Social Security. So not only are you getting one check, you can now get 2 checks a month and like kind of take advantage of this. Like that's a brilliant, brilliant big idea for something that's probably just like a basic, I don't know, investment index fund or whatever it is. And he turned it into, okay, here's how you can basically get 2 Social Security checks by piggybacking on the Canadian system. That's an example of a big idea. And one that like just really sticks out, really hits. It just grabs you really, really quick. And I mean, really, it comes from a lot of research. It comes from kind of thinking about it. And it comes from really just letting it sit. That's kind of a big thing. Like you're not going to think of a big idea in a day. Those are the kind of things you got to like sit on for like a week or longer.
I don't know. I disagree. I think sometimes the big idea just hits you when you walk into something random. I don't think that's the norm, but I agree that the big idea, first off, is the most important piece. And there are times you get lucky and it just comes to you. And then there are times when it takes a little longer. But I think there is a process for finding that as well. Like, I mean, I don't know. How do you find your big ideas normally, Goff?
I start with the market and start with what I think would work for them. So like when I was writing the stuff to the conservative market, it's pretty easy to understand what triggers them and what they're looking for. Like I always had all these ideas in my head. I was like, okay, some offer where I could tie like Ronald Reagan into it would do really well. Some offer where I could tie like Israel and something with like the Holy Land of Jerusalem in with it would do really well. When I did the thing for Patriot Power Greens, I knew people who are conservative politically have a huge affinity for the military. So tying the military angle in with that, I knew would work really well.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I mean, I think that I think that creativity is not the creation of something. I think it's the sort of intersecting point of 2 seemingly unrelated ideas. So I find that reading a lot of different types of books and consuming, like, as well as having a life, I find that having an actual interesting life is potentially the most important thing you can do as a writer, which can be hard for a lot of writers because a lot of them are introverted nerds. Sorry, to be perfectly honest. And they're like, I just want to write every day and come up with interesting shit. And it's like, well, you got to go out into the world and understand how people operate and how they think and what conversations they have and stuff. But I have a very weird thing. I meditate a lot, and I have a weird like process that I do and that I teach, that I will literally sit there and be like, let's see if I can come up with something. And I've had some of my biggest ideas come in a flash of like pure clarity through a meditation. But again, that comes from consuming some input, like different types of information and letting them sort of conscious and then let them come out. So
cool, man. Let's jump into
this is a good question. What's the first tweak you usually make to improve a funnel, VSL, whatever, where do most people fail at their funnels?
Yeah, so I have a good answer for this. So I do a little different process with this. So most clients tend to come with me and they're like, we need a new sales letter. We need this. Usually the client, 80% of the time, unless they're super, super smart, doesn't really know what they actually need. So it's up to me to actually figure out what they need. So I actually look at their entire funnel holistically, from sales page to checkout page to the upsells to the confirmation page to whatever they have after it, even to the ads on the front end. And I kind of go through it step by step and I find out, okay, here's where I see the weak spots. So it's kind of like when I was on David Garfinkel's podcast, I kind of compared it to, it's like how animals in the wild like find their prey. It's like you just find the weakest point, you like zero in on that and hunt that down. I kind of do the same thing with a funnel where it's like there's these 6 steps in a funnel and I'm going to find the weakest point that I can get an easy win really, really quickly. If that's on the front end and the copy kind of sucks, then I'll do that on the front end. If that's like their first upsell being like just not well written and not well formatted, then I'll start there. It's easier for me to do because I kind of know what it should look like and what it should be saying. But it's really more you diagnosing it. Basically, like you're playing doctor and you're doing the diagnosis and not just listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things that Goff and I have shared in common sort of in this whole journey is partially that I don't think either one of us actually really consider ourselves copywriters. I think that's technically what we started doing and what our main skill might be, but that's really only one facet of what we actually do. And I created the cheesy term persuasion hitman instead because it sounds badass. But the reality is so many copywriters, literally they learn how to write copy and they don't take in conversions overall as part of their learning process. So they do hand copy sales letters or they start writing long form or they write email copy or whatever it is. And they look at things sort of in a vacuum like, oh, this whole thing is based around this part of the sales letter. And that's not the reality. The reality is it's an entire machine, just like a car. You wouldn't look and go, oh, you know what it needs? Tires. Like that's the important part of a car is the tires. It's like, well, if it doesn't have an engine, it's not going to go anywhere. And so I think it's really collectively realizing that there are gaps all throughout the funnel and most people aren't learning all the different pieces. And then, I mean, really, I know Goff and I have both seen this is there are great marketers who just fuck stuff up in their own office because they're too close to it, or frankly, they just haven't remembered to go back and look at their upsells or to retest stuff that they started out with. And I feel like that's one of the most useful things that people can do from an outside perspective. Like, I mean, I'd do that in my own business. I would go into clients' businesses and work on their upsells and stuff. And then for my copy business, like teaching copy, I didn't have any upsells, even though I had products. And then one day I was just like, well, let's just throw these in the funnel. And suddenly we doubled the AOV. And it's like a lot of people just don't do the stuff they know they're supposed to be doing for their own businesses, even though they know it. So you go in and you become the person who does those things. Or, you know, if you have a business, that's why it can be worth having somebody else come in, no matter how smart you are, is we get so much fatigue from our own office. We get so close to things that we really can't see the gaps in what we're doing. And so that's why also like clients will say, this is what I want. And I go, well, why don't you let me look at your funnel and decide where the work should start? Because they have an idea of what they think is most important. But I can come in and say, actually, I don't think that is. And honestly, what I start with, and I tell this to clients when I work with them is, I'm not going to start with what I think is going to get the biggest win necessarily. I want to start with what's going to get the biggest win in the quickest amount of time to start. So I don't want to go and rewrite something that's going to take me 2 to 4 weeks. If I can get you a new test tomorrow, or this, I've had this happen where I get off a call with a client and I'm like, okay, I'm going to rewrite the first 30 seconds of their upsell. And I literally sit down right then, rewrite it, send it back to them in half an hour. They go test it and get a 20% boost. And instead of like the old Eugene Schwartz thing, if people have heard it, where he's like, I sat down with a guy for 4 hours and, you know, we had a long conversation. I learned everything about, I don't know why he talks like that, but, you know, and I, you know, I ended up, you know, I went home and I wrote the sales letter in 2 hours. It's like, and then I sat on it for 2 weeks because I didn't want the client to know that I wrote it so quickly. Like for me, it's like, no, I'll just give it to them and then they can be testing for those 2 weeks and then I can get paid by the time I would have turned that in, or they're already making money. So it's partially looking at what is testable for the client, because there's all sorts of big tests you can run that you think would get a lift, but they may take 4 weeks, 6 weeks for them to implement. I'd rather work on something that their tech team, like, so a lot of people don't look at is what are the capacities of the company? What is their, you know, technology system? How are they set up? And all that stuff. Like, that's why it's nice if people don't have VSLs actually, because you can rewrite the start of their sales letter. They can go put it up tomorrow. Whereas with the VSL, they may have to get their voice guy to do it and they got to get the production, all sorts of shit. So that's how I look at things. And that's really how I look at everything. What is the biggest leverage for the least amount of work? Fastest.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Another thing that kind of ties in with that is this idea of, somebody mentioned in here, testing. It took me a while to realize this. So a couple of years ago, when I put out my first supplement offer, it was a testosterone offer called Ultimate Male. This was in like 2013 or so. And this was kind of right as testosterone was starting to get popular. We put that offer out. My partner at the time was Brandon on that business. We put that offer out and kind of like right off the bat, without testing anything, it was like break even. I didn't really understand this business enough yet at the time to like realize how good that is. Like if you just drop an offer and it's breaks even, like right off the bat, you're doing pretty damn well. And we ran traffic and it did well, and it was bringing in customers and it was breaking even. But in my head, I was like, yeah, but it's not making any money. Like I want this to make a bunch of money. Because my previous offers, a couple of them made a ton of money on the front end, which can happen, but is not like the norm. And I just never realized until it took me probably a couple of years to realize. And we actually ended up like that product did like, I don't know, 20 to 30,000 customers that year. But we ended up like stop running traffic for it. And we actually like never tested anything more for it. Like I look back at it now and it literally pisses me off because that thing was like a home run. That would have been a huge, huge offer with like, we did a little testing on the upsells, a little testing on the pricing, the VSL, the email copy. Like we literally probably could have like doubled, tripled what we had going. But kind of one of the things to realize is that nothing's ever going to be a hit when you put it out right away. I've had one product that's done that. And when it does that, you basically know you hit a grand slam. But the usual offer you put out, like it's going to take a little while to get going, even if you're pretty damn good at this. So a lot of testing, a lot of tweaking. That's really, you kind of just start at one point, and if it's making sales, you're happy, and then you just incrementally boost it up to where you want it to be.
Yeah, and I think this is a really primary thing that people, primary is not the right word. This is a thing that people, it's so, whenever I see the chat come up, I have such a hard time not looking at the questions as they're coming up. But I think one of the big issues, like, and I'll do this in my own business, is like I just did this W conversions challenge thing, and it did well. To cold traffic, we were above break even, and then we just started turning traffic on again. And I'm like, oh, let's just run it, and let me go create new products now. And so I'm like in the process of creating new products, and I realize if I literally spent 30 minutes a day for a week, if that was literally all I did ever again, on that. Crown Plaza, hello, how are you doing? But if all I did was spend a little bit of time reworking the sales page, like what I do, because it's my tendency, is I create shit and then I never look at it ever again. I've had the same sales page for my email copy course since 3 years ago, and I wrote it in 20 minutes on my parents' couch. Like I've literally never I've never rewritten it. And that's such a common thing. And I think that's something you can build into your schedule, is even if it's half an hour a week, to literally go back and work on one funnel. And even in Mark Ford's one of my favorite people that I've learned from, as far as like Great Leads is one of my favorite books. But he has also 0 to 100 million flat, no time flat or whatever. And I was just talking to my business partner about this the other day, is, you know, in the beginning, you want to find that one offer. Like I have a tendency to be like, let's test 3 offers and try and get one of them going. But you don't end up sort of doing the necessary work, especially to like scale to a big business. It's easy to just sell stuff and make a bit of money. Like to turn it into, you know, something bigger and more sustainable takes more work. But I think people really, at least I do, forget to go back and really be disciplined about your testing approach. I'll do it with a client's business, but then with our own, we're like, yeah, whatever, you know, I'll go focus on something else.
So you touched on something there that I think is a really important point, and that I wish I would have learned way, way earlier, which is getting just one offer working instead of working on like multiple ones. Because the difference between if you have a front end offer, the offer that generates all your customers, if that is working and just firing on all cylinders, everything else in your business becomes super, super easy. Getting the customers is by far the hardest part of this business. I mean, there's nothing harder than it. So getting that front end offer that generates all the customers working, if you can get it working on cold traffic, whether that's email, Facebook, native, whatever it is, that changes the entire business. So I'll give you an example. When Patriot Power Greens took off a couple of years ago for us, right out of the bat, like it was doing pretty damn well. And we scaled it up. We got the AOV up pretty high. And we went from like, I don't know, maybe like 20 or 30 sales a day to 200 sales a day to 400 sales a day to, I think we got to like 600 or 700 at its peak. When you're doing 600 or 700 sales a day of a product that's like $200, you're racking up a ton of good customers. And then all of your back end offers work much, much better. And that's really what this business is about, is customer acquisition and then selling them products on the back end. You make all the money on the back end. This is super like basic to me now, but if you would have told me this 4 years ago, this would have been like light bulb moment for me. The money's not made on that first sale. You can make money on the first sale, and that's awesome if you do, but the reality is what you're really trying to do is just build this huge email list of really good buyers, of people who will spend money, and just get them to sell more, and you sell them more stuff. Because putting out back end offers to a list that has already bought stuff from you is so freaking easy. I mean, that you don't even need great copy to do that. Like pretty much any B-level, C-level copy works for that.
Yeah, and sort of on that line of thinking is, like right now, Brent and I, my business partner, basically like we sort of built the Lionheart business backwards on purpose. So we started with these higher ticket backends and we're able to sell them to my existing list. But now it comes down to how do we really pull in new people to go to workshops? And the reality is most people aren't willing to go, like most people who don't know me or know Brent at all aren't willing to. They can buy a $1,500 product, but they're probably not willing to go fly to somewhere else in the country and spend 4 days. So we need to find a front end that's going to work. So we've been working on this past few days, and you go, okay, well, let's create 3 products. We get one on procrastination, one on money, one on this. And I'm thinking like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to try 5 offers, or do I want to try like 2 and really try and dial in those offers? But I think it just comes down to individually, like, I mean, if it's supplements, you're not going to make 5 new supplements in a week, right? Like you've got to sort of figure out what your business can create from a product side and then test the big idea. Like I could maybe write the best copy in the world about procrastination, and then I could write mediocre copy about money, and I may still get 50 times the customers about money because it's a bigger issue that more people are dealing with. Like, you have to sort of dive into, I don't know, this is something I'm going through myself with my own business, is like, where do you put the focus in what you're doing? But either way, I think it's so easy to get pulled into having multiple. Well, imagine, I always used to say this, imagine if we get 3 front ends running all at once. Imagine that, like, we'll be crushing it. And it's like, yeah, but we have 3 right now that are all doing okay. Why don't we get one of those to really go for it? And that's where I get sort of pulled off to other things. It's like, why don't we just work on this one thing? And I think that's what Goff did really well with Patriot Power Greens. It's like, this is the offer that pulls in the customers, and pretty much that anything you come up with for your own list is going to sell well, at least to them. But I think it's worth it's really discipline, right? It's just deciding that I'm going to be ruthless about this one funnel until it's doing really well.
Yep. There's a good question here. Ryan McGrath, excellent copywriter, works for Agora Financial, and is actually coming to my event in October, so he's even better. Ryan says, do you have a baseline to judge if an offer is a bomb or has a chance? For example, conversion rate to cold traffic or some other metric. Yeah, so I don't have a hard line one, but if I'm putting out an offer in a niche where I really already kind of understand how the upsell process should work and all that, and I put it out, and let's say we do a $5,000 email drop and it bring back 2,500, that would worry me a tad, from the standpoint that, okay, the upsells are already like decent. I know a lot of the stuff we're doing with the funnel works on other funnels. That would kind of worry me a bit. If I was putting out a brand new like offer and I really didn't have like the upsells dialed in or anything like that, and I spent $5,000 and brought back like 2,500, I would say that's a win, and that you could get that to be a pretty profitable offer actually. One thing too to kind of remember there is like, so when we first released Patriot Power Greens, I think one of the first email drops we did was something like that. We spent like $5,000 and it only brought back like $2,500, so we lost $2,500. Interestingly enough, there was nothing wrong with the copy. There was nothing wrong with the funnels. The big issue there was the email creative that I was using, because the next email creative I used brought in like $15,000 on that same email buy, like a 300% ROI. So it literally had nothing to do with the funnel. And I'm thinking the whole time that like something's wrong with the funnel, something's wrong with the sales page. And it was literally the email creative just sucked. So that type of thing just kind of, that would have been a huge mistake, obviously, just like ending that offer and be like, well, it doesn't work. Giving multiple, so if you're testing something like an email, multiple creatives to try it. If you're testing on Facebook, multiple creatives to try it. For someone who's at your guys' level with Agora, to me, that seems like it would be a good starting point.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at some of these questions here. And I think, Ryan, my whole thing on that is always like, I think with email buys, it's so different. They're kind of they take balls, like email drops, they take a set of nuts, because you literally just drop this money out there and then you go, well, hope it works. And you kind of know within a couple of hours what's going to happen. So I think with like things like Facebook traffic and YouTube and different things, people ask that a lot, like, what conversion rate are you looking for? I had somebody join the unit and they're like, I want to get my conversion rate to between 1% and 2% and this. And I'm like, your conversion rate doesn't matter at all. Like, if you're making an ROI, that's what matters. So I think if you can get like 75% on day 0 of your ad spend, you're probably going to be able to get back to break even through emails and working on the funnel itself. But the reality is, because a lot of people they'll spend $200. Obviously you guys are spending massive amounts of, this doesn't apply to you, but like well, they're spending $1,000 a day and they're making 2,000. So they're like, cool, let's just keep doing that. When in reality, what I would want to do is scale to 2,000, 3,000 and make back, right around the same amount that's going in to continue to get as many customers going in. So I don't think there are baseline numbers. I think the biggest thing that most people don't know is they don't know their day 0, day 1, day 7, day 14, and like day 30 values, which is genuinely, it's stuff that takes tracking and shit to get that sorted. But I think that's the biggest thing to look for is, are you able to break even within 14 to 30 days? And then what is your cash flow? Like that plays such a big role too, is people are like, well, just eat a bunch of cash. And it's like, well, if you're buying physical products and stuff, you can literally hamstring an entire business making a $750,000 product inventory run. Like these things add up, like terms and stuff like that start to make a difference as you scale. And there's a lot of different factors, but I don't think there is ever a baseline. Like I know Justin knows with 4 Patriots, they have a $2,000 product that converts to cold. It's like, that's definitely not going to be a 1% to 2% conversion rate. And it doesn't have to be for that to work.
Right.
And real quick, Scott Lopez asked if we measure DTV, which I have in the past defined as death time value, which is especially valuable in the supplement niche where you want to get old people to get on a subscription and then they die and you keep billing. So most people are really short-term minded. They think lifetime value. I'm going deeper. I'm going death time value because what are people thinking about? I think, I wonder what supplements they were subscribed to. They think we got to pay for the funeral. We got to do all these things. So you just want to get them really on there, not just for life, but also in death.
I can't wait till this video is played in court one day when you're brought in by the FTC.
Yeah, wait, sorry. I don't sell supplements anymore. I don't sell supplements anymore. That's a joke. That's a joke.
That's funny.
But I did realize we have a friend who sells to mainly like 70-year-old and above, a lot of them. And I realized I'm like, man, he probably bills dead people, like not from a mean way. It's just like, also they can't really cancel. Okay.
It's a logistical issue.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to pick up the phone from 6 feet under. Did he really say, wait, did you mean to say DTF? Sorry, I don't know what DTV actually was, but yeah.
I like this one question. What's the best way to go about understanding funnel hacking?
Don't call it that. I hate that term so much.
I mean, there's a couple ways to do it. A is go find offers that are working, buy the products, and literally I either screenshot or just put like screencast on and record everything that's going on when I go through the funnel. If you do that on like a couple different offers in a certain niche that are working, you'll see pretty quickly like similarities. Like, okay, this guy's doing this. He's using video here. He's using whatever. That's probably one of the easiest ways to do it. The second way is what Ian said earlier. Me and Ian have both been very lucky in the sense that we have tons and tons of data, so we know what works. And you're kind of like someone who's starting out brand new is like starting here with their funnel, whereas we're like starting here because we already have all this stuff that we know works. So really, once you start finding things that work, and you can do that by, if you're a copywriter, doing it in a client's business and getting the data from them, or if it's your own business, obviously test as much crap as you can and start to figure out what actually works.
Yeah. Sorry. There was a good question here. What was the difference in the copy for the email drop that you did? I don't know if you remember, but it
was the hook. The hook was just terrible in the first one. It didn't really connect with the sales page. I tried to make this, it was like this big turn it had to make to like connect, and it wasn't doing it. So the next one was like just so much more tied in with the sales page, and it crushed.
makes sense. And actually, there was a question earlier that I just remembered, and it said something like, what are the second and third most important pieces of a long-form sales letter?
What's the first?
The first is writing it. No, the first would be the lead, is what I assume they thought, and that's what I believe, is that your lead is going to be the most important part. But I would say, and I'm curious what you think, I'd say the second thing, so when I go into like a sales letter that's already working or a VSL, I think of it sort of as a sandwich. Like the meat in the middle is probably fine. I'm just sort of changing the bread. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but it's like the sequence of everything is one of the most important things, but I want to change the lead and then maybe the offer, like the close. I'll change just close language can make a big difference, like price anchoring and different things, giving people the options, like the 3 options sort of close of like, you can either keep going in your life exactly how it is and still be a depressed piece of shit. You can go search the internet for a bunch of free stuff and basically probably still end up a depressed piece of shit. Or you can actually take action today and do this and change your life. But I think actually the price really, like so many people don't test price. It's incredible. When we were at the credit solution program, we didn't test price for like 8 months because I said to the owner, I'm like, dude, why don't we just test the price? He's like, it's really hard to do with our software. I'm like, you realize that if we go from $47 to $97, we might get the same conversion rate and make double the amount of money. And it's like, okay. And then finally you test price and you're like, oh my God, like there's a guy, I don't know if he's on this call, but I had him test the price on his front end. That's all he changed. And then he's ended up taking his AOV from $9 to $17.50 just from me adding an option on price and changing that. Like people don't look at that. And then I think the other most important thing is a story. Test the actual story you're telling. Yep. And I know Paris is on here and I think it was him that said it. It's like, if you have a great story, lead with that. A great story will almost always win. But I really think the story plays one of the biggest roles. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm almost painfully like broken record about stories now, but I used to like hear it all the time. It's like, oh, tell stories. It's really important. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. And then I started doing it and seeing what happened. And also it's like 10 times more fun than writing other shit. But really focusing on the actual story can make the biggest difference in anything you do. Cause also people remember the stories. Like people will tell people about a sales letter and about a product, and like when they're sharing about your product too, especially if you have a bigger business that people actually share what you want to build something like some virality into it. People share the story about the product. They don't share as much, well, this product does this and the other one doesn't. It's like, yeah, this one was used like for Patriot Power Greens. They're not like, well, you know what, this one has ashwagandha in it and the other one didn't. They're not telling their friends that. What they're saying is, oh yeah, this is used by elite military units to get back in shape.
Yep.
That's more interesting than some, ingredient bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. On sales pages of VSLs, your biggest bang for your buck is going to be like changing the lead. So on a VSL, that's probably the first like 2 minutes. On a sales page, that's the first, couple pages. And really you need to change, like the way I do it is very like big changes. So a lot of people try almost kind of like rewrite the same thing, and it's like, that's not really going to do anything. So like maybe one angle is about, I don't know, if you're doing a water filter, one angle is about why the Red Cross uses this type of water filter. Another angle is about something with like Flint, Michigan that the government's not telling you, and the other angle is something else. So like 3 very, very different leads. And that way you're going to kind of get, really know which one's the best. And like I said, the problem is most people just kind of write the same thing 2 or 3 times, and that's just not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, it's like people take little swings. It's like, ooh, and honestly, people do like, let's change the button color. I had a guy message me once on Facebook. He's like, hey man, I saw your page for the water filters. I just want to let you know, you'd probably get a really solid lift if you change your button color to orange. And I just didn't respond. I was like, I can't fucking talk to you about that. Like, that's ridiculous thing to come and offer. Like, with headlines and these different things, people will test something that's still reasonably generic or whatever it is. Like, at least go for it. If you're going to come in with a new test, like, really decide on, like, be willing to take a risk too that you might lose bigger, because that's how the time you're likely to win bigger is if you're willing to lose bigger.
Yeah, like going from a long form sales page to a VSL, that's a big test.
Yeah.
That type of stuff is where you see the huge bumps and the huge changes. Like, I remember a couple of years ago when Mike Geary was like the first one to use the like doodle style video. And I remember when he first did that, it literally was like I think it was like a 250 to 300% increase. I think it was like 300 something.
I think it was 300.
That is insane. You're not going to get that from dicking around with like changing little things on the fringes.
I think anytime you can change the medium of how things are consumed, you have a chance to do much better than everyone else in the market. I've actually been doing this with Zoom calls, which ironically we're on one now. But like, people do these webinars and shit. And I also find that my personality and my like enjoyment on webinars is far less. I don't like to just talk at a bunch of people. I like to have people's faces show up and have them interact. And I think Zoom is a much better platform. So for me, I'm like, well, why don't I just do Zoom meetings instead of webinars? And anytime you introduce a new, oh my God. And as I say that, Scott Bruick's face just pops up like a creeper. That's hilarious. And he's got Scott's Lopez on it as his name. Like, I think anytime you can introduce a new medium into your market, you have a chance for massive growth. Just like when sales letters went to VSLs, when VSLs went to doodles, when when teleseminars went to webinars. Like, if you can ever make a change in a technology of how something's delivered, I think you can do very well. There's a new software, which you're an adventure type of video, which I've been wanting to do since I like started writing VSLs, and I haven't gotten to test it yet, but something like that might be a huge win. Like, being able to ask right at the start of a VSL, like basically almost like a quiz, but be like, hey, are you a business owner or a copywriter? And then my entire VSL changes based on which thing they respond to. And then as they're going through the letter, I have these little branches that come off. Like, things like that can make a huge difference without having to get too clever with your copy.
We talked about doing like a lightning round of questions. Let's do that. Basically, everybody who's on the call wants to ask us like a really quick question or something that me and Ian can answer within like 30 seconds. Start posting those in the chat. I say we open this up to anything too. So you could do copy funnels. If you want to ask us some like off the wall question, you could do that. Yeah, me and Ian will answer. If I was somebody, I would ask him, who was the girl who answered the phone who was in bed behind him?
That will not be answered.
That would have been actually really priceless if it wasn't Whitney.
Yeah, that'd be good. It is Whitney. No worries. That'd be super awkward.
Cool. So yeah, put your questions in the chat.
Sooner and shit, it's been the best event I've been on in ages. Gathered more in the 15 minutes than most 90-minute blabathons. Now I don't feel bad that I missed Burning Man this week. Thank you, Ian and Justin.
We're much cleaner and we smell better.
Yeah, speak for yourself. Both of you guys' biggest front end hit's been free plus shipping. No. I've had those have been some of my big ones.
I would say no, but I have made free plus shipping offers work on the front end. A couple of them. Yeah.
That's been some of my biggest, maybe half of my biggest front ends have been free plus shipping, maybe.
Yeah.
Is it the red or the green button? I like green, but I don't have enough data to tell you that that's the truth in my particular situation.
Green or orange, usually. The two I always test.
Yeah. Ryan McGrath, weird tricks to improve creativity, meditation supplements, mind mapping. Ryan, I think you know the answer to this since you've done the second self. I have a very deep belief that the second self meditation I do is the most useful thing a human can do for creativity. To me, it feels like cheating. I feel like it's like how I can suddenly have ideas. For me, that's definitely my biggest thing. And then also listening to the same songs. I listen to the same music every time. I write in the same sort of settings. Like it doesn't matter if it's a different coffee shop or whatever it is, but I put myself basically in the same state before I write, and it's basically state congruent memory. So I do a lot of handwriting still. I'll handwrite sales letters before I type it up. Works for me.
I'm gonna give Ian a plug here. For me, it was literally going to the Lionheart stuff and working with Brent and getting a lot of the shit cleaned up that was holding me back. Once a lot of that got cleared away, the creativity and my ability to write and think is much, much better.
Yeah, and when you can, and I appreciate that, but and when you can access your emotions on a deeper level, like out golf, it's like Brent was like, how did you write? And it's really like when you can tap into your own emotions, you can tap into the emotions of your market, and also stop judging yourself, right? There's so much self-judgment that goes on when you're writing, and self-worth and different, like trying to be perfect and stuff like that. And if you can deal with that, you can get out of your own way and really write some of the best stuff
Yeah.
I've ever written.
I like Anthony's question. What advice do you have for finding, negotiating, managing a celebrity or other face for a product? Yeah, so the way we did it was pretty much tied to performance of the product. So I think it was like 50 cents for every sale that we did. If you're doing a big name, you might have to pay. You're probably gonna have to pay them up front. But normal people like doctors and stuff like that, you can usually work out a performance deal with them. I would also work out a deal where you test it for like 3 months, pay them like a flat rate for those 3 months, and then test it for 3 months to make sure the offer works. And then if the offer works, bring them on for a cut of whatever you're doing. Don't give them so much that it inhibits your ability to scale the offer, because the reality is, unless they're a big name, they are very much replaceable by another person.
Here's a real quick one. 2-step order form versus 1-step.
I've never done 2-step. I've always made 1-step work better. So yeah, I'm a 1-stepper.
I've done both. I mean, I think it really depends on how good your ability is to convert people on a hot list. The hot list would be people who finish step 1 but not step 2. If you can write solid email copy for a few days and make up a good amount of money. So I think the better you, my idea on cold traffic in general, for depending on what niche you're in, is the better you are at writing email copy, the more people you probably want to get on your list, and the less you want to rely on that, the more you want to focus on selling right away.
Yeah, and to kind of add to that, I actually never did the 2-step because I do not care about getting opt-ins. I only want buyers on my list. That's a little different than a lot of people think, but in my mind, even someone who buys a free plus shipping offer is worth like 10 times what just somebody who opts in is worth.
Yeah, and I've in the past primarily, like I think with most, especially physical products and like health businesses and stuff, I'd more lean towards that. But like for me now, it's like I trust that if I get somebody onto my email list, sell them something, whether it's copy and marketing related or Lionheart or whatever. If I can get 20 people instead of one person and I'm paying the same and I'm still getting break even traffic, I'll take the 20 on my list because I never know what they might buy. but that's just that business specifically.
I would say it also varies by business. So if you're in a big consumer niche like health or something or finance, the issue you run into is if you have a ton of opt-ins, you run into deliverability rates. And if you have a ton of buyers, you get really good email open rates. So for me, it's not worth having opt-ins on the list. You look at it but then completely different, like my current, my private email list where there's only 400 people on it. Nobody has bought anything because I've never sold anything to them. It's all personal people I've invited or someone has kind of shared it with them and they applied. So that's a completely different way of doing it. But to me, on big consumer lists, like I literally only want buyers.
Yeah, and like for deliverability too, that is going to make a difference. Like the better quality people you put on your list, the more likely you are to get good deliverability. What did you laugh at? Is it the question that I think it is?
Is Ty Lopez gay?
Yeah, that one made me laugh too.
I don't know. That would explain all the women around him, but
yeah, I mean, man, his ads lately, he's got a cowboy hat on, and I just want to throw up directly onto his. And I want to throw up in his cowboy hat and then put it on him. Yeah, but
this is actually a really good one. So Chris said, "Where do you find companies, clients to work with, or do they mostly come to you?" I can say without a doubt that me starting my email list 6 months ago has brought me more work and possible work than anything I've ever done. Being in front of people every single day who can have the money to hire me and who want to hire me. I hit the point like a month ago or a month and a half where I literally just had to stop taking clients because I just have way too many. So my advice to any copywriter is be doing something that you can be in front of the clients every single day or at least regularly. So whether that's you sending them like a print newsletter every month, that's you sending them daily emails or weekly emails or whatever, do something that you're in front of them every single day or as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I left my job with Perfect Water and Crisis, and I immediately, because I had a lot of credibility and I knew a lot of those people, it was like literally I got an offer for more money than I made the last year immediately. And then over the next few months at that point, I remember there was a period I did not go a single day without getting someone messaging me, either email or a lot of it was Facebook messages about writing copy. And a lot of that was at the time I was posting more on Facebook. And I also, for anybody who knows about my videos, those silly, stupid videos that I started making for fun have oddly gotten me, they've made me a lot of money from whether it's clients or people going to workshops or buying stuff. Like the biggest thing is literally being in their mind, like just existing in their mind makes it so that people reach out. And some people are $1,000 and I'm like, no. And then sometimes you get great clients, but it's like Justin said, it's literally allowing people to remember that you exist. But on top of that, knowing that you are different. So know that you exist and know that you're not the same as everyone else. Like, what is your hook? What do you do differently than every other copywriter or conversion guy or whatever it is? Like, why would they come to you? So most people don't do is they're just another boring person that nobody really gives a shit about. The L's question, if you had to start over, what way would you build your own email list? There was a really good one up here, actually. Sorry. I think Van Mike or whatever said, new Survivor episode, Justin and Ian get dropped in a new country with nothing but a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. None of their past email list, no clients, no connection. I thought we should just do that.
I would literally, the easiest thing would be find offers. I would write new leads for them and email the new leads to them and say, here, test this. And then they test it and it wins, which it probably would. They're going to want to start working with you.
how would you, if you didn't have any credibility, how would you get them to actually test it? I guess they could just read it. If
They could
you'd have to
tell.
get them to read it.
Yeah, if they're smart, if it's a smart company, they're going to tell pretty quick that you know what you're doing.
How would you get it to the person who's making those decisions?
Put in some effort and find their email address.
There you go. Those are the little questions that people always ask me that drive me crazy. It's like, well, how do you email them? I'm like, I use Gmail. You know, like, as far as, so people asking how to build a list, I mean, I personally am doing with my own business now, it's, Facebook ads and then YouTube. I think you need to figure out what you are good at and what your skills lend themselves to. Like for me, video is going to do better than most things because I'm the only person I know who's creating ads with Kent Gardone as a character. Like if I were to go to native ads for that wouldn't make sense for me to do that. I would, YouTube and Facebook are going to be my best sources because I have a unique skill with video. Or email copy, email drops are going to be great because I know I can write good email copy. What is your skill? Like go there. Maybe it's guest posts, right? Maybe you write really good content and you don't have money to spend on ads. Go find people with great blogs and do a guest. Building a list is simple. You literally send people to a page and you get their email. How you send them to the page is dependent upon your skill set and how much you want to scale. The problem with free traffic is it's not scalable.
Yep. Cool. Let's do a really quick lightning round with just personal questions off the wall, whatever you want to ask. Me and Ian will answer them. This could go horribly wrong, but
yeah, it's good. This could. It's okay. I'm a pretty open book.
If you got anything random you want to ask me and Ian, non-business related.
Weirdest thing you've spent money on?
Ooh.
Let's come back to that. I got to think about that. That's the weirdest thing I've spent money on. It's a really good question.
I have a suit that I just bought. I got my first custom made suit. I never would have thought I'd spend that much money. It was like $3,200 for a guy who literally never wore a suit till he was 28. The fact that I spent that much money on a suit is shocking to me, but after I put it on, now I understand why. It's like wearing Lululemon clothes. That's how comfortable it is.
I'd say actually, okay, I think mine, weirdest to other people, but not to me, would be the sort of murder camp thing that I went to, where it was it's like a violence training, but it was, you basically get attacked at one point. Actually, I think Tim Larkin's on here. He has an idea of what I'm talking about, but yeah, that was an interesting experience, and I paid for something that most people would not ever do. That was probably one of the weirder things.
Nice. Let's do these rapid fire really quick.
Most money you've made in a day.
Favorite book?
Right now, Surrender Experiment is my favorite book.
Mine's Fight Club. Do you guys want kids? I actually have no interest in having kids.
Most money you've made in a day.
Most money made in a day. When I got bought out from Patriot Health, I got a big old bank wire. It was great.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, it's probably like $60. No, like 60 grand. What was that? I want kids? Yeah, I do want kids. Not with Justin, but I do want kids.
Be a good-looking kid.
Yeah, as long as he got mostly my genetics. What do you bench? Man, my bench is by far my worst lift. I'm probably only around 225 right now.
I don't bench, so I couldn't tell you. At my best, though, it was only maybe 185.
Yeah. If you ask deadlift, I can give you a much better number, but we don't need to talk about that. If I could go, this is a good question, Dave. If you go, what would you do differently? I know this is going to sound super cheesy, but I would do absolutely nothing differently at any point in my life ever, because I'm very content with how things have gone. And I know that every single tiny decision that I've made and thing I've done has led me to this exact point. And if I changed one thing, it could change all of that.
That was a really esoteric answer.
Whatever, I just said the same.
Ignoring that aspect of it, I would focus on one thing. I was one of those people who just hopped around to fucking everything when I started. So
yeah, pick a skill.
I would develop a skill before trying to start a business.
That's the great thing about writing and copy is like you can literally use this to do it. Like you can write letters to friends, to people that you want to do business with, to girlfriends, to whoever it is. Like that skill of writing is something you'll have till you die, and it's incredibly useful.
I like the next one. How many times a week do people say you look like Jesse Elder?
I'm saying just like Jesse Elder.
Since I moved to Austin, I've probably had
40.
At least 5 different people who I'm just like at a random bar or restaurant and someone like comes up and like hugs me from behind or says hello thinking I'm Jesse, and they're surprised I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, this was really funny. Somebody in the unit today said, I'm really bummed that I'm going to be missing your battle with Justin Goof. And that made me laugh. And somebody just asked, have I called him Justin Goof yet? No. But thank you, Justin Goof.
Awesome.
And then I think one more question, and then we can. Somebody said super hairy kid. That is true. That would be a hairy child. I think that's probably
daily emails. Good. Yes, every list.
Yeah, I agree with Goff. I've found that the more you mail, the more you make. There's no list that I've ever found yet where I've mailed more and made less money.
I like the one Ryan just put, how much is enough money? Something I've actually been thinking about since I got a bunch of money with my buyout, and I've kind of been thinking about it. I mean, really, it kind of boils down to what's enough for you. Because there's always like this idea of how much is enough for everyone else. But really, the more I've thought about it, it really comes down to what's enough for you.
Yeah, I agree. But Brent has the thing. He says it's 20 million because 20 million is where your money alone will make you $1 million a year.
Right.
And you're pretty much set. So I think that's a reasonable goal as well as.
But it also depends how you live. Like if you live currently on 70 grand a year and you had 3 or 4 million, you're set.
Yeah, I think it's completely dependent. Also, it doesn't really matter. People have this idea that a certain amount of money is going to make you feel a certain way, and it's absolutely not true. Goff knows this, and most people who've made money know this. And it's like Jim Carrey says, look, I want people to make a lot of money so they know that it won't make like, let's try. May as well give it a shot and find out for myself. But the reality is it's whatever makes sense for you. Some people don't need a lot. Some people want more. And most people find out that no matter how much money they have, they still have to live with themselves. And that's the core issue that is making their life less enjoyable.
Let's do one last one. I like John's. What do you do to make this world better?
I can definitely. Where was it? What do you do to make this world better? Yeah, I mean, I can say for the first time in my life that I feel incredibly grateful for the Lionheart business that I have. Like watching people actually change and watching that change stick. Like watching Justin, like having worked with Brent, become almost a totally different person that's probably the most rewarding thing I've ever been a part of. I think that makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I would say for me, it would be probably 2 of my biggest things is, I'm mentoring 2 guys right now with the copy. And I basically took them from knowing literally nothing about internet marketing to now they're both on pace to make like $100,000 this year in their first year. To me, that's been really rewarding. And the second thing for me is I do a ton of work with dog rescues. I'm a huge dog lover. a good chunk of all the money I make goes straight to dog rescues, and I help them with a lot of their direct mail and their marketing and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest thing I'm passionate about.
And then also, this is kind of a joke, but also true, is helping the rich get richer, which seems kind of like a joke, but the reality is I actually believe that wealthy people have a far larger capacity to change the world around them. So if you can provide more wealth, like if Justin and I make more money for other businesses or for our own, like those are the people, it's sort of starting with, that's the stuff that's going to actually make a difference. It's not starting at the bottom doesn't really work. It's starting at the top and having that trickle down effect on the world.
Cool, man. Let's
and then
let's switch gears real quick. So one of the things I wanted to mention before we take off, I am holding my first live event. If you're on my email list, you've heard about it. You may have got a package in the mail about it if you gave my assistant your snail mail address. So as of now, I think there's 10 or 11 people signed up with a max of 15 allowed. So this is not cheap. It's $25,000. So this is targeted towards businesses who really understand funnels and customer acquisition and making an offer actually work, and kind of how important it is to have an offer that keeps working and bringing in customers every single day. So that's what the event is all about. It's called Beat Your Control. The promise is that I'm going to literally show you how to take whatever control you have right now that's bringing in customers, and I'm going to show you how to beat it. It's October 9th, 10th, and 11th in Austin, Texas, and I will share my screen right now so you can see it. Saw that sweet picture of us. So basically the guarantee on it is pretty ballsy. Basically I say within 48 hours I'll be able to beat your control, or I'm going to pay you double your money back, which is $50,000. So like I said, the event's $25,000. And if I can't beat your control, I'm going to give you $50,000. So basically on day one, I'm going to go over what I call my 18 biggest control beaters, which are things that I've learned between all of my funnels and all of my clients' funnels over the last 9 years. So I've made 9 different products work on cold traffic between my own and my clients. And I'm going to teach you basically what I do for all of them and what I do for my own offers to get an offer working on cold traffic and keep it working. So that's kind of like a little part of it that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of the offers I had ran for 3 years, 4 years, stuff like that. That doesn't usually happen unless you know what you're doing. So to kind of put that in context, if you just have one offer that works on cold traffic for 2 or 3 years, you can get pretty damn rich. So yeah, basically I'm doing this October 9th, 10th, and 11th, Austin, Texas. The sales page you can see here at beatyourcontrolseminar.com. Like I said, the people, this is very intended for high-level people. The people coming already, Ryan McGrath and Doug Hill from Agora Financial, Jesse Canone, who's a really successful health marketer, Steve Gray, super successful in multiple niches, Mark Stockman, Jeff Radich, they crush it in the health niche. Sean Haddisall and Ryan Colby are coming, and Scott Mills and I think it's Tryon. I think I got your name right. Big dudes in the survival niche. So, and actually Lee Euler, who's an amazing copywriter.
And I want to say, if you're a copywriter, this is also something that you can actually go and learn how to make a real living from it. I think, like I've said, the difference between how Goff and I have done things in the copy world is the way we charge, literally the way you structure your contract. I feel like I'm talking to Geary right now. It's weird.
I'm trying. How do I turn my screen on?
I think you can just stop. Yeah.
There you go.
But if you are, the biggest difference is being a good writer is not that difficult. Being a well-paid writer is a completely different ordeal. And the biggest difference, I think, for Goff, less and make more than anybody else charging for for copy and sort of funnel improvements. I don't know if that's totally true, but the fact is like the way that we structure the contracts is what makes the big difference. So if you can go in and you can actually, and also the fact that we win, right? That's an uncommon thing in itself. But I always
small element.
Yeah, but I view that as like the easy part since I've done so much of this stuff. But like, you know, that's not the case for everyone. So if you can go in and learn a few ways to go beat controls, you can get paid. Literally, even if you're starting out, you can learn how to you can go get paid nothing to like go do something up front for free and make $5,000, $10,000, whatever. You don't have to use the same numbers that Goff and I use. You can make a real living from this. I mean, $25,000 to make $100,000 or $200,000 a year is obviously a pretty great deal. If somebody were to, I mean, fucking hell, going to college costs more than $25,000, and the only guarantee you have is you're going to have some debt at the end of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think
that's something else is if you're in that world, it can be a real valuable investment.
Yeah, I mean, what me and you do is pretty unique. And we do a lot of stuff on performance, so upfront and performance. And we do a lot of stuff where we're not just like a lot of guys rewriting an entire 40-page sales letter, where I go in and do the upsells. I go in and redo the checkout pages. Like I made $170,000 from a client a couple months ago by redoing his checkout page because I got him a 59% boost on it. And according to the deal we worked out, he was paying me a percentage for each boost I got him. And I got him a 59% boost, and he was glad to write me a check for $177,000. It took me like 3 hours. So that's kind of a cool way that I'm going to teach if you're a copywriter, kind of shortcutting the process so you're not writing 30 different 40-page sales letters every year and just like grinding that out, because that's basically just leads to burnout. It's not fun.
Let somebody else do that.
Yeah. Also, some of you guys asked how to get on my list. If you're not on my list, it is by application only. If you just go to justingofflist.com, there's a little application with like 5 questions there. You can apply and get on it. My assistant will go through it, and if you meet the qualifications, you'll usually be put on the list within like 48 hours. So that's all I got, man. If you're interested in going to my Beat Your Control event in Austin, feel free to hit me up. My email is justingoff@gmail.com. We could hop on a call and chat about it if you're interested. It's going to be pretty amazing. I said there's only 15 seats available, and there's already 11 or 12 taken. So if you're interested, let me know. You got anything? Awesome. Closing remarks?
No, I don't think so. I mean, hopefully I'll see some people in Austin. That's about it. This was fun. I think people got a ton out of it.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming. I had no idea how many people would show up. The fact that 100 people showed up and most of you stayed the whole time, pretty damn awesome. Yeah, and some pretty high level people here. Some names I know too. A few people who I don't think I've actually met before. So this has been fun. Cool. All right, brother. Enjoy Redondo Beach. Thanks, dude. Heading to San Diego this afternoon. So. Oh yeah, nice, awesome. Yeah, it'll be fun. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Everyone. Take care. See you later.